Hello everybody and welcome back to the podcasts. My name is John, as you know. I'm a Saha resident and we are here on our theme of Safeguarding Month. Now, we have a special guest coming up, I believe, but first off, who's not so special, we can go over to Mary, who will introduce herself.
Oh, thanks for that, John. I feel very not special now. Anyway, my name's Mary. I'm the Customer Insight Officer for Saha. As John said, Safeguarding Month this month, and really looking forward to having some guests on. I'm going to hand over to David to introduce himself, and also, I believe, David, you may have an introduction to the interview with our guest.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Mary. Hello, John. Welcome back to the podcast. And hello, everybody. My name's David. I'm a Saha resident. And yeah, you're quite right. We do have a guest. I was lucky enough to be able to interview Gill Cook. This is what she said.
I'm Gill Cook. I'm Head of Housing here at Saha, and as part of that role I'm also the Safeguarding Lead for the organisation.
Fantastic. So a question then for you first, and for our listeners, what actually is safeguarding?
So safeguarding is quite broad, and what we at Saha have as our safeguarding, well, you'll see it on if you go on our website, we have quite a lot of information about safeguarding. It's protecting people from abuse, from neglect, and keeping people safe. And we do that here in Saha in a lot of different ways. It's all about protecting people's rights to live free from abuse and harm. And we do it in partnership, so we don't do it in isolation. We do it in partnership with residents and with other organisations that work across the country with our residents and service users. And when we have different parts of safeguarding, so we talk about safeguarding adults and safeguarding children. They are quite different. When we talk about safeguarding adults, we very much have to have regard to the views, wishes, feelings and beliefs of that adult if they have what we call capacity, so they have the ability to make their own decisions, and compared that to safeguarding children, where sometimes things have to be taken out of people's hands and actions taken despite what people want us to do. So there is a kind of a different approach, but we put it all under the same umbrella and call it all safeguarding rather than kind of separate things out.
Okay, fantastic. So, listening to what you said, is safeguarding then a legal requirement within organisations?
It is. We have a responsibility to keep our residents, and as a housing association, to keep people safe and to contribute to safeguarding in the wider sense. So if you think about where every kind of contact matters, if you see something, say something, it's really important that we make people aware of what can go wrong, what safeguarding is, what people might be concerned about, what might be kind of a bit of a flag that something might be happening that means that somebody is being abused or neglected or that there's a problem, and give people the opportunity to share that so that we can then support putting that right and keeping that person safe.
Fantastic. So you've talked about keeping people safe and protecting their rights, etc. But why is safeguarding actually important? Why should, say, for example, other tenants get involved in safeguarding issues?
You know, everybody wants to be safe in their home, they want to be safe in their property, and we're moving away. So I know you talked about health and safety before, but safeguarding is different. Safeguarding is about somebody who might be at risk of abuse and us protecting them from that. So, for example, what you might see in general needs schemes is somebody who is quite vulnerable, who may be being harassed or maybe being abused or neglected, or, you know, what's quite common is what's called, for example, cuckooing. So somebody might come in and take over the flat of somebody who's quite vulnerable. They maybe sell drugs from that property. They may create antisocial behaviour problems from that property. And that person is too vulnerable to say no. So they put themselves at risk. They put the whole service at risk. And part of our responsibility then with the local authorities is to try and safeguard that person. Sometimes that's quite difficult because when it's an adult and, it will be seen as actually they've got the capacity to make that decision to allow that to happen. But what we should do then as an organisation is try and put as much support as possible in for that person to enable them to see what's happening and to enable them to make changes with their lifestyle, make different decisions and support them in making that decision. Because obviously, we can't be there all the time, and it's quite difficult for people if they're being threatened or they're vulnerable in some way to be able to manage that. So we try and wrap a service around that person to help them protect themselves and make those different decisions.
So what measures then have SAHA actually got in place at the moment to provide safeguarding for, and we talked about vulnerable people, so what have you got in place now?
So our safeguarding policy, people may remember that if they were with SAHA this time last year, we introduced October as Safeguarding Month, and we did a big review of our safeguarding policy last year and our procedures. And how we did that, we talked to residents, we talked to our employees, we talked to people, other organisations that we work with to kind of think about what do we need to keep our residents safe, what training do our employees need, what support do we need to give our residents, what information do we need to put out there. So we did a big review of that policy and procedure. So we have a real robust structure that we can then hang our safeguarding processes on, if you like. And they're based around 6 key principles. So it's all very person-centred. It's about putting the person at the centre of what we do around keeping them safe. It's about empowerment. It's about enabling people to make their own decisions and give informed consent for actions to happen. And I think at some point you will hear from our refuge services, and they'll be able to talk quite a lot about what actions they take specifically in relation to keeping the women that we work with safe and the children safe, and whether what permissions they get from that person to kind of make referrals into particular organisations for support, and how that's different when there's a child involved and they kind of have to take things out of people's hands and do stuff anyway. So that we kind of look at that empowerment. And we also have a focus on prevention. So we want to be the difference between safeguarding and then protection from abuse is that safeguarding, we try and look at stopping things before they happen. So we're preventing harm and we're taking action before you get to a stage where people are being abused. So we're starting to talk about raising awareness, we're talking about sharing information, understanding what abuse might look like, what positive relationships are, what people can expect from, to keep people safe, so that we can start to understand the triggers of things that might happen and prevent it happening in the first place. And then we start to think about the levels of what we would then call proportionality, so that we start to think about what the risk is, and then as an organisation or as a support provider, we would then kind of look at the least intrusive route to manage that risk. So what we wouldn't want to do straight away necessarily is go in or, really like all kind of gung-ho about something. We would try and manage that safely, but with the least intrusiveness as possible, but making sure that people are protected and that we are supporting and representing people who are at the greatest risk. But also that we are not the answer alone. So we work very much in partnership with other services. So social services, drug and alcohol services, mental health services. We're very much it's a partnership approach with the community to help prevent, detect and reporting, kind of managing abuse, but also being very accountable and transparent so that we're not hiding anything, nothing's done in secret. And we're just kind of working together with our residents and with other services to make sure that people are protected.
Fantastic. One of the things that I'd really like to ask is, how do you, as an organisation, and I'm talking about SAHA here, how does SAHA actually get sometimes to know whether a person is actually vulnerable or being subjected to abuse, neglect, etc.?
So, depending on where they live. So, for example, as you know, we have a lot of supported housing services that have got a team on site 24/7, and we work really closely with them. We have a lot of information and knowledge around what that person's needs are when they come to us. So we'll know about issues at the point of referral, and as they live with us for a period of time, we start to see things. So people start to observe behaviours and things that are going on, so that we can get an understanding of the bigger picture and what's happening with that person. But if they're in general needs properties, it's a little bit more hidden. So hopefully we'll get some of that information when they move in. We'll have an assessment process for somebody accommodation. So hopefully we'll have some of that information at move in. But often it's neighbours and the community, and people can make a referral in and say, actually, I'm a bit worried. I'm a bit worried that something might be happening with that person. I'm a bit concerned that maybe, they've got lots of visitors, and I'm a bit worried that they're being bullied or harassed, or, there's stuff going on that, doesn't quite look right. And I think it's really important that people are comfortable in sharing their worries, that they're not kind of keeping that to themselves. It may be that it's something and nothing, but it's better to have that conversation and flag something that somebody's concerned about, rather than sit there and not do anything. And there might be a real issue there. So a lot of the time it's because people just have that little niggle in the back of their mind that they go, there's something not quite right here, I want to talk to somebody about it, and they can talk to their housing officer or kind of scheme manager and kind of say, I'm just a bit worried, and we can pick things up from there.
That's great. One of the things that I've heard maybe in the pipeline are safeguarding champions. What can you tell me about those?
Yeah, so we introduced, when I joined SAHA and took over the role as safeguarding lead, I introduced safeguarding champions. So each region and kind of part of the organisation has a champion who will have that little bit extra training and knowledge around safeguarding. And they can be the first port of call for our teams who, if they're not sure about something, or they're not they don't quite know where to go with a concern that they might have, they can go to their safeguarding champion and get that additional support or advice. But what the safeguarding champions also do, so as part of our responsibilities as an organisation, what we do a lot of is we report on safeguarding concerns. So if there's a safeguarding concern raised, we make a note of it and we monitor it, and it may be that actually that's all we do because it's at a certain level and it's not serious, so it's just a little niggle. Or it may be that actually we need to do more with that and we need to refer into the police or the local authority for additional support and to keep that person safe. But we keep a record of all of those concerns that are raised. So every quarter, the safeguarding champion looks at all of those concerns that have been raised in their area, and we start to think about, are there any trends? So is there a particular service that's getting a lot of concerns relating to financial abuse, for example, or domestic abuse, or things relating to mental health? And then we'll look at, actually, do we need to do something different to keep people safe? Do we need to raise more awareness? Do we need to put different training sessions on for the team working in those services? Do we need to get somebody in to talk to the residents about how to do things differently, what things they need to be aware of? So we start to think about those trends locally in those kind of areas, and then we also meet as a team of safeguarding champions and look at the same thing across the organisation. So that will then look at, actually, do we need to change our policy? Do we need to change our practice? Do we need to change the way that we work nationally to be able to make sure that we're managing our responsibilities around safeguarding better? So there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes about, so these are the issues that we're dealing with on the front line. How can we support our teams to do that better, and how can we prevent them happening in the first place by creating awareness, building partnerships, making sure that people have that information to be able to deal with stuff before it happens.
That's great. One of the things that's occurred to me, if I'm concerned about somebody, maybe perhaps a neighbour rather than someone that I'm sort of in close contact with, and I realise that perhaps things may be going on that I'm not sure about. If I contact SAHA, I mean, maybe through the housing officer or just general contact number, if I speak to someone, would I be confident then that the person that I'm concerned about isn't going to find out that it was me that contacted you and perhaps, come from there?
Yeah, so that there are a number of ways that you can raise a concern, and you can do that by speaking to your housing officer, or if you don't want to speak to somebody directly, you can raise it through our website. So there's a form on our website that you can fill in, and you can raise a concern anonymously. So we are really conscious that one of the things that we try to look at in Safeguarding Month, that we did last year and we will do again in October this year, is what are the barriers to reporting on safeguarding concerns. So people might be worried that, I'm telling tales, or that there may be some comeback from me reporting something. But we want to make sure that it's as easy as possible for people to report those concerns, so that we can act on them as an organisation, or we can get the person who we're worried about the support that they need. So you don't necessarily have to report them face to face. You can do that. I mean, you can phone your housing officer, you can speak to your housing officer, you can drop them an email, you can talk to the customer service centre, or you can do it through the website and just put a note on saying, I've seen this happening, I'm really worried, could you just have a look? And it may be that our team are not the people to deal with it. It may be that our team will then make a referral to another organisation like social services, children's services, adult services, mental health team to kind of put that support in place and manage that. But if we don't know about it, we can't do anything, So it's really good to be able to talk about those things. And I think, you hear the safeguarding concerns on the news, where there's real issues of children being harmed, and once those issues are highlighted and you've seen them on the news, people then come out and go, oh yeah, I was a bit worried about that. I saw something and I was a bit concerned, and the neighbours knew about it, and everybody, a lot of people have a lot of different pieces of information, and it's not put together to make that bigger picture, which is when it becomes a big safeguarding concern. So the more, and I always call it like that, a jigsaw of information. So the more little pieces of information you get, you can put together that jigsaw that gives you the bigger picture, that then means that actually that you need to do something, and the local authority will then be able to support and help and make a difference for that individual person. But it's those little niggles that you have. If you see something and you're a bit worried about it, your gut is telling you actually that's not quite right, then it's worth picking up the phone and having a chat through, or just dropping a note to say, just not sure, just think you need to be aware of.
Excellent. So it sounds to me then that safeguarding is going to be an ongoing issue and project.
Absolutely. October every year is going to be Safeguarding Month, and the idea of that is that we have a refocus on how important it is. We remind everybody how important it is. We have another look at what we've done over the past year, how we can get better at it, how we can, have there been any, like I said, barriers in reporting, safeguarding, what can we do differently, how can we open that up to people and make people feel comfortable talking about stuff. I think if we talk about stuff, it makes it easier for people to say there's a problem. So it's not kind of swept under the carpet. It's nothing for people to be ashamed of. It's something that we can help with, we can manage, and we can keep people safe. And, absolutely, it's not going away. It's a big part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. It's a big part of the role of the teams in the supported housing scheme. It's a big part of what our housing officers do, or people working within our general needs services, just to make sure that, we are enabling somebody to sustain their tenancy. And part of that is making sure that we're keeping people safe.
Well, I think that's it, really. That's answered all the questions. But yeah, that was really, really great. That's fantastic. So, looking forward to putting our jigsaw together with you.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me and doing all of this for us. It's really appreciated.
Oh, it's brilliant. No, it's really good. I learn so much every week when I talk to people, so it's really good.
Well, that was a very interesting interview there, David. It was great to hear yourself and Gill Cook talking there. I'm going to go back to Mary just to say her goodbyes and to David to say his goodbyes.
Thanks, John. Cheerio from me. That was great. And yeah, actually, I'll forgive you for not saying I'm so special because...
Oh, you're special. You know you are.
Jill gave us a lot of really interesting information, and we'll move on into safeguarding months with lots more information and detail. Goodbye from me anyway. Over to you, David.
As you've quite rightly mentioned, we do have some more guests coming up, so everybody remember to listen in to the next series of podcasts. That's all from me, so until next time, be seeing you.
Yeah, and for those who doesn't know about these podcasts, please pass the information on and get them to listen. Thank you very much. I'm off, and goodbye to everyone.
Bye.